Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Janelle Broderick, joined today by artist Emma K. McDonnell, whose illustrations are now on display in the HCC virtual galleries. Welcome, Emma. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Janelle. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. So before we talk about the work that's on display, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better as an artist and where you've come from. You are a former HCC student. Tell us about your experience at HCC. Who were your most influential professors while you were a student?
So I attended HCC from 2006 to 2008 when I graduated with my AA in studio art. I was also in the Rouse Scholars Honors Program, which was great because not only were the academic courses really excellent, but I was able to take advantage of a study abroad program with their connection with Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. We went to London and that was a great experience. But in the visual art program itself, I believe at the time it was being run by Jim Adkins, who I took classes with. And I also had courses with Peter Collier and Professor Donna Jones at Ife Gon. But I think my favorite course that I took, visual art course that I took as an HCC student, was the portraiture course with Karen Warshall. Some of the techniques that she taught in that class have stayed with me this whole time since then, or at least variations of those techniques.
And after HCC, you transferred up to Boston. Tell us about that experience and how HCC prepared you as a transfer student.
Well, attending HCC was great because I was able to get all of my gen eds and foundational visual art courses out of the way. I didn't have to really worry about any of that by the time I had transferred. So I was able to dive right in to my courses for my major, which was illustration. And I graduated with my BFA in illustration in 2011. But Boston was great. The school that I went to was the Art Institute of Boston at Lesley University, which is not actually part of the Art Institute chain of schools. It was its own thing. But now I think it's called the College of Art and Design at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And yeah, I had a really good experience there with small classes. And that was where I eventually wound up finding sort of like my calling for a time that led me to New York for a few years to work in immersive theater.
And we're lucky that your path eventually brought you back to
Yeah.
Maryland. So we're
Yeah.
happy to have you.
Sure.
And now you actually work at the college as well.
I do. I work for the visual art department. I'm a studio manager and gallery assistant. But I also work for HCC's Arts Collective as a graphic designer, and I do a variety of special projects with them, from stage managing to really anything that they need. But it's really been a really great experience working for both entities at the college, and being able to do that has been very rewarding.
So you bring up a really good point that you are an artist in many fields and mediums. And I know you as a performer and an artist. What is it about illustration that really draws you to that as I guess, your main craft?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I looked up the dictionary definition of illustration because I was having a hard time like thinking about that. And it's so the dictionary definition is to illustrate is to make something clear or to explain something visually. And I think that kind of sums it up for me, because when I was a student many years ago, I felt very disconnected from the fine art world. It seemed too out of reach, too hard to wrap my head around the things that I was seeing in like contemporary fine art. And illustration seemed not simpler, but it just seemed more accessible to me personally. So I think that's why I originally gravitated towards illustration. And now I find that it's just a a nice term for the kind of work that I make. But these days I feel like I could go probably either way with calling my art one thing or the other. And going back to my connection with performing arts, I find that illustration and like working as an illustrator for a client and working as a performer or theater designer for a director kind of seem similar in some ways. Like in both instances, you are helping someone else bring their vision to life.
That's a good point. It's
Yeah.
it's this relationship, this working with others to create something even greater than you may have done on your own.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's turn now to this collection, Technicolor Familiar, that is available for viewers through our virtual galleries. What inspired you to begin this series? And tell us about it, and which piece came first? Do you create them consecutively? What's your process like?
So those are a lot of things to touch on, but I think it all kind of came from a period, like all of these are recent pieces done in the last handful of years. Nothing is much older than that. But I had been going through a period where I was really struggling to make the kind of art that I thought I should be making. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I eventually stumbled upon this image, like a rudimentary version of the piece in the online exhibition that's called Technicolor Familiar 1. It's the three goats. And I did like a rough version of that in very bright colors, kind of like how it is in the version that you can see here. And that seemed like something just clicked in the back of my brain. And I was able to find that title and use the title Technicolor Familiar as a way to push my work in a certain direction, to give myself direction, period, first of all, and also to create this umbrella for all of the work that I've been making since then.
Tell us about the pieces. How do you create them? What materials and tools do you use to create the pieces? They're quite small in terms of dimension.
Yeah, I like to work small. It started out as a necessity because my scanner that I own and was using to upload my work to my website, I needed to make things that would fit on that scanner rather than having to worry about photographing them, which I still struggle with, to be perfectly honest. I never can quite get it exactly the way that I want it, but I have stuck to working small because it's also nice to have pieces that are easy to carry around and easy to store. I work on paper primarily, and I like toned paper that has some sort of, whether it's gray or brown, like craft paper or pastel paper, but using ink on that rather than like pastels or pencils. And the tools that I use are affordable, they're easy to find, and they're easy to carry around. So I can work pretty much anywhere, wherever I'm at. I can bring my things with me. It's not a huge, big setup.
Are you usually working from home or
These days?
Now you are. Now you are.
These days, yes. But in recent years, before the pandemic, I had been traveling quite a bit with people that I met through a gallery and some other folks, and also just by myself as well. And I was able to like bring my things with me to work rather than like haul around a bunch of stuff. But I prefer to work with handheld tools that I can like see the tactileness of it. That's not explaining it very well, but I prefer that to a digital, which would be even more convenient, right? To just work digitally. But I like the feeling it as I'm working during my process, feeling the paper and feeling the whatever I'm using on it go on the paper. It's something very satisfying and multisensory about it.
In a way, I feel like that 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 tactile quality that you mentioned, that feeling has a way of, like your artist's emotions going into the material almost. There's
Sure.
something about that process of touching and being part of something live in front of you.
Yeah.
The pieces are spectacular. And one of the
Mhm.
things that I find striking is that there's such a variety of emotion throughout the collection,
Mm.
and the techniques that you use, it's very easy to look at something and say, oh, that's something that Emma did. I love the fact that I can see something and say, oh yeah, that's Emma's work.
Well,
I
that's
feel
good
like
to hear.
I feel like it has like a signature feel to it, but each piece is so specific and it's hard to put your finger on it. At least personally, it's hard to put a finger on exactly a quality or put the image in a story, but it immediately makes you feel something. And I love that.
Well, thank you for saying that, first of all, because I personally have struggled with trying to brand my work in a certain way. But hearing you say that makes me feel like I've maybe have done that, at least in a way that people who know me and have known me for a while are able to be like, aha, yes, when they see the pieces that are in the show, at least.
I know there's been a number of people who have said how much they really enjoy the pieces. Would you ever consider uh, selling them or creating prints?
So yes, I do think that having some sort of online print store or print on demand situation that's something on my to-do list. It's not by any means ready to go quite yet, but hopefully soon, within the coming couple of months, now that I have time to work on it.
This collection was originally planned to be shown on campus in person in the Richard B. Talkin Family Art Gallery and has now moved to our virtual galleries. What do you think are some benefits of moving online?
Moving online, definitely allowed people who wouldn't have been able to see the exhibition to see it. I have a couple people I know who live overseas who wouldn't have been able to come, at all. They maybe had seen the same pieces on social media, but to see it all in one place, I think that's an experience that more people could potentially have, which is nice, than would have seen it had they, happened on campus and been to the Talking Gallery. But I think people may be missing out on, like we talked about, that tactile experience of seeing art in person. Because when I think like you go to see art like at a museum, or even like go to a dance concert or a show or anything, like that experience of experiencing art in person, I really miss it. And I think other people do too. But what can you do?
I know, I do too. I miss it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's fabulous to have this opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very grateful.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with viewers? Do you have a favorite piece in this collection?
Oh, um, well, it's kind of like every like artist or creative person says like, well, I can't choose a favorite. It's like having to choose a favorite child. But I think that that's true, because they're all they're all things that I put a lot of time and thought into. So I think they all mean something to me. I'd be interested to hear from other people what they respond to. That's always really interesting to me, when artists can get feedback about like what other people like are drawn to. And I know it's different for everybody, but hearing that is really interesting.
Well, I think that's something that's also great about your work is that it's eclectic, and I think there is something for everybody. I really hope that someday we can have a live exhibit of your work.
Yeah, hopefully. It's definitely something that I've talked about with gallery director Thomas Engelman. So fingers crossed, and hopefully sooner rather than later. We shall see.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Emma. It was a pleasure to see you and to talk about your work.
Yes, of course. And it's a pleasure to talk to you. And it means a lot to be asked to come and chat today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. For more information on Technicolor Familiar and other online exhibitions, visit howardcc.edu/galleries. I'm Janelle Broderick for In the Spotlight. See you next time.